Today, we are examining a script that visually summarizes the core philosophies and 4 laws of behavior change from James Clear's Atomic Habits, concluding, waking up at 6 a.m., doing the grueling workout, stepping on the bathroom scale, and seeing absolutely zero change.
Without that visceral frustration, the theory is emotionally flat.
So to fix this structural gap, the primary suggestion is to weave the personal narrative directly into the explanation of the 4 laws.
Yeah, to serve as a continuous, relatable through line.
Instead of treating the creator's journey as a grand finale reward for getting through the lecture, use those personal examples as the primary vehicle to actually explain the theory from the very first minute.
Anchoring the theory to lived experience instantly eliminates that abstract distance. Like when the script explains Law 1, make it obvious.
Right now, it just lists the concept of environmental design.
Right. Instead, the creator should immediately introduce their specific story. Paint the picture of dragging the heavy dumbbell set out from the dark hall closet and dropping it right in the middle of the living room floor.
Directly in front of the television.
Exactly.
Because visual cues bypass the brain's executive functioning. When you stumble over a dumbbell on the way to the couch, the environment is triggering the automatic response rather than relying on willpower.
You instantly show the audience what making it obvious looks like in a messy, real-world apartment.
Another crucial area for this integration is the 2-minute rule. The text defines it conceptually, but waits pages to share the application.
Pair the psychological theory with the practice immediately. Tell us about the creator's personal goal of reading just one single page of Ryan Holiday's The Daily Stoic on their balcony.
Bring the listener out onto that balcony. Make them feel the morning air.
The psychological theory and the tactile practice should hit the listener's ears simultaneously.
Keep in mind, those structural integrations are just a few ways of solving the broader issue of narrative distance. Once we weave the practical application throughout the piece, we must ensure the foundational philosophy is perfectly dialed in.
Right. The overarching motivation behind these habits needs refinement.
The argument advocating for systems over goals is strongly stated, yet it risks oversimplifying the relationship by treating them as mutually exclusive.
The weakness in this section really stems from a very bold, capitalized directive in the text. It literally commands the reader to forget about goals, focus on systems instead.
It manufactures an unnecessary either-or conflict.
Yeah, and interestingly, the text contradicts its own absolute stance just a few paragraphs later by admitting that goals are good for setting a direction.
Exactly.
By presenting goals as an inherent negative up front, the material actively undermines the psychological necessity of having a destination in mind when you're trying to build a system.
I completely agree. In fact, I want to push back on the premise that forgetting goals is even practical.
Oh, definitely.
Think of a system without a goal like a perfectly engineered ship engine without a compass.
That is a great way to put it.
I mean, the engine might be heavily lubricated, the pistons are firing in perfect rhythm, it's churning the water beautifully, but without a compass to dictate the trajectory, that gorgeous system might take you to the completely wrong continent.
Momentum without direction is nothing more than chaotic energy. That makes sense, but could the evidence also support a different conclusion, like goals and systems existing in a necessary biological hierarchy?
How so?
Well, let's look at the neuroscience presented within the script itself. The text dives into how dopamine spikes drive human motivation.
Yeah, the brain's reward pathway.
It explicitly points out that the hormone dopamine is released not just when we experience a pleasure, but when we anticipate it.
Let me challenge that for a second, though. If a system is just a daily routine, doesn't the successful completion of the routine itself trigger the dopamine release?
You would think so, but why do we fundamentally need the distant goal to get the chemical reaction?
Right. Why is the goal necessary?
Because dopamine isn't just the reward chemical, it is the craving chemical. The script uses the example of anticipating a vacation. A vacation is a goal.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
The anticipation of that specific destination is what triggers the dopamine, which then provides the biological fuel to execute the system of saving money and booking flights.
So you physically cannot have the dopamine spike without the anticipation of a desired future state?
Exactly. The goal provides the craving. The system provides the mechanism.
So the actionable suggestion here is to reframe the goals versus systems section to emphasize the profound symbiosis between the two.
rather than pitting them against each other for dramatic effect.
The creator needs to clarify that goals define the trajectory, while systems provide the momentum.
To execute this shift, the language needs nuance. Soften the extreme directive from forget about goals, and pivot to something practical like deprioritize goals in your daily execution.
Right. You don't wipe the goal from your memory. You just stop obsessing over the finish line while you're trying to run the current mile.
A great way to illustrate this symbiosis is to utilize the text's own airplane analogy. The script mentions a plane flying from New York to Los Angeles.
Where reaching Los Angeles is the goal.
You absolutely fundamentally need to know that Los Angeles is the target. Otherwise, the pilot doesn't even know which runway to use for takeoff.
And the system is the tiny 3-degree adjustment and the autopilot continually correcting the course along the way. Both elements rely on one another to function.
Right. And while these are just a few ways of refining the argument, the core objective is to stop telling the audience to throw away their compass just because they need to focus on tuning their engine.
It creates a cohesive, logically sound philosophy. If the compass and the engine are aligned, the ship is moving forward. But we also have to look at what is actively dragging the ship backward.
The negative behaviors.
Let's look closely at the section discussing the elimination of those negative behaviors. The framework for building good habits is robust and detailed. However, the inversion of these laws for breaking bad habits feels comparatively underdeveloped.
The imbalance here is severe, both in structural weight and in psychological depth. The source material spends an immense amount of time detailing the intricate psychology of building positive loops.
Like temptation bundling in the Premack principle?
Right. The idea of using a high-probability behavior, like drinking your morning coffee, to reinforce a low-probability behavior, like doing 5 push-ups. We get deep into the weeds of how positive construction works.
But in stark contrast, the methodology for breaking bad habits is totally glossed over.
Stating that one should simply make a bad habit invisible or unattractive ignores the immense psychological friction involved.
Especially since the text acknowledges early on that bad habits are driven by primal, evolutionary motives.
Like the deep human need for social connection or reducing uncertainty. You cannot just brush past millions of years of evolutionary hardwiring with a quick life hack.
Let's look closely at the section discussing leaving a phone in a drawer to avoid social media.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
The script positions this as a major strategy for increasing friction. I have to critically question this. If social media platforms are explicitly designed to appeal to an underlying primal evolutionary desire for tribal acceptance,
And the fear of missing out.
right, is putting a piece of glass and metal in a drawer in the next room truly enough friction to stop it? To me, that feels like trying to stop a speeding freight train by placing a single orange plastic traffic cone on the tracks.
The scale of the friction does not match the scale of the craving at all.
Not even close.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of the emotional labor and the real stakes required to dismantle an addiction? How do we actually match that evolutionary scale?
It's really tough.
The frustrating part is that the script actually contains the perfect tool for this, but it is entirely buried.
Wait, really? Where?
At the very end of the piece, the creator mentions a $10 accountability penalty established with their partner. Every time they use social media during focused work hours, they lose $10 and they lose their partner's respect.
Oh, wow, that is a fascinating application of behavioral economics.
It's a brilliant concrete tool leveraging loss aversion. Human beings are biologically wired to feel the pain of losing something twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
But it's drastically underutilized in the main text.
Exactly.
The suggestion to resolve this imbalance is to dedicate equal conceptual weight and structural space to the inversion of the 4 laws.
The creator needs to deeply expand on the emotional, social, and environmental effort required to break negative dopamine-driven loops.
Ensuring it matches the depth provided for the positive loops.
And we have several concrete examples of how to implement this effectively.
Let's hear them.
First, expand the Make It Unattractive section by immediately bringing in the author's internal reprogramming monologue. Right now, the cognitive reframing is pushed to the very end of the document.
So move it up.
Move it up. Show the audience the actual cognitive behavioral therapy happening in the creator's head. You know, random scrolling is for losers. Do I want to be a consumer or a producer in this life?
That internal dialogue is critical because it shows the audience how to actively make a habit feel repulsive in their own mind
It moves past the generic advice of make it unattractive.
and provides the exact internal script required to dismantle the psychological appeal of the screen.
Another highly actionable example is to elevate that habit contract concept much earlier in the text. Detail exactly how to set up that $10 partner penalty as the ultimate insurmountable friction for the make it unsatisfying law.
Contrast the mild, easily overcome inconvenience of walking into the next room to grab a phone
With the immediate stinging humiliation of handing over a $10 bill to your partner and admitting you failed.
It forces a confrontation with immediate consequence versus delayed consequence. Scrolling social media usually carries a delayed consequence.
Right. You realize you wasted an hour of your life after the fact.
Exactly! The $10 penalty introduces immediate tactile pain. These are just a few examples of how to deepen the content, but the ultimate goal is to arm the reader with a freight train of targeted friction to stop their freight train of bad habits.
When you align the cure with the depth of the disease, the entire framework becomes bulletproof. It ensures the listener isn't just receiving a summary of a book, but a tested blueprint for overriding their own neurobiology.
The architecture of the entire piece relies on balancing those elements. Let's briefly recap the core takeaways from our analysis today. First, to solve the structural distance, weave the personal narrative directly through the explanation of the 4 laws, to ground the theory in immediate, relatable reality. Show us the dumbbells on the living room floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second, regarding the core philosophy, reframe systems and goals as a symbiotic relationship rather than an either-or conflict. You fundamentally need the compass to define the destination and the engine to provide the momentum.
Exactly.
And third, give equal conceptual weight and deep, specific friction to the strategies for breaking bad habits. Match the evolutionary scale of the craving with real immediate stakes, like the accountability penalty.
The foundational material submitted here is incredibly strong, and implementing these structural and thematic deeper dives will elevate it from a solid summary to an unforgettable framework.
Totally agree.
We warmly invite the creator to apply these actionable suggestions, rework the narrative flow, and submit the revised piece back to the critique for another look. We always love seeing how these concepts evolve in the next draft.
Because ultimately, whether we are building an atomic habit or editing a script, a perfectly engineered system is wonderful, but it only matters if you have the compass telling you exactly where you're going.